Hi, it's time for another verb of the day. Today's verb is substitute. And this verb is another viewer's request, and I'm so grateful for that. I want to encourage anyone who's watching this video that maybe thinks of something that would be interesting to hear in one of these. Please leave a comment, suggest. I'm working on verbs for 2024 now. But now let's begin by looking at the ways that we use the verb substitute. The first way you're likely to hear substitute used is to mean to use or add in place of something else. With this first definition, many people think about recipes, right? Where someone describes the ingredients one needs and then the steps that one takes in order to make a particular dish. Sometimes in recipes, people recognize you might not have certain spices or certain things at your home. So they will offer other ingredients that you can use in place of the recommended ones. A second way you'll hear the verb substitute used is to mean to act or serve as in place of another person. So with this second definition, I think it's probably helpful to think about substitute teachers. These are individuals that serve as the teacher for a particular class period, day, week, sometimes even a month, in place of the regular or permanent teacher. A third way we use the verb substitute is to mean to replace someone or something with another person or thing. As I thought about this particular definition, I thought about how I have replaced certain in-person activities in my classes with other activities that work a little bit better online. So I've replaced certain activities I did with students before the pandemic with new ones that work better when we're on Zoom. A fourth way you'll hear substitute used is very specific to the sporting world. So many times when one player gets replaced by another player in the middle of a game or a match, we're going to use this verb to describe that action. You should know that substitute is a regular verb. To make the progressive form of this verb, you're going to drop the E because we have a verb that ends with vowel consonant E. Then we're going to add that ing, and that forms substituting. The past tense and participle forms of this verb can be made by just adding D since this verb already ends in an E. Now our base verb, substitute, ends in a T sound. This means that we're going to add an extra syllable to the verb when we form the past tense or the participle form. Okay? So we should pronounce the past tense form as substituted. Substituted. Okay? I hope you can hear that id sound on the end of the verb. But now let's move on and talk about a phrasal verb that you might encounter with our verb of the day, substitute. And that phrasal verb is to substitute for. This phrasal verb can be used in two ways mainly. The first is to act as a substitute for someone or something else. An example of this might be, you can substitute applesauce for the eggs in this recipe. You can see the connection back to that first definition, right? So we're putting applesauce in a particular dish instead of eggs. Okay? A second way substitute for gets used is to mean to use, employ, or instruct someone or something to act as a kind of a fill-in, a replacement for someone or something else. An example of this might be, the coach substituted her star player for a rookie with 2 minutes remaining in the game. Okay. So I imagine many of you can understand star player, right? generally what's thought is the best. Rookie might be a new person. Usually, this is someone in their first year um, uh, in competition or in a particular professional league. So here, maybe the game is going to easily be won, right? We don't want that star player getting hurt, so in comes kind of the new person. Okay. Now let's continue using our verb of the day in some different verb tenses. Today we'll practice the past perfect and the simple future with a focus on be going to. Let's start with the past perfect. We use this verb tense to note that a particular action occurred before some other time or before some other action in the past tense. So we're still talking about completed actions, but the past perfect helps stress or indicate to our readers or our listeners that a particular action occurs before something else. To make past perfect sentences, our structure is going to stay the same no matter what our subject is. So in the affirmative, we're going to have our subject, we're going to use had, and then we're going to use the participle form of the verb. Here's an example sentence. The airline had substituted a different plane for the flight to accommodate more passengers. Okay. So here, I'm not good at naming airplane models or types, so I'm not going to try and confuse us, but you can imagine maybe one airplane holds 200 passengers, and then we have another airplane that holds 400, right? So, right, we have a replacement essentially, right? The bigger plane is taking the place of the smaller plane. Now, if you want to make a past perfect sentence, you're going to start with a subject, you're going to use had not, and then the participle form the verb. You might also hear the contraction hadn't, and then the participle. I've used the contraction in my example. The chef hadn't substituted cheaper fish in dishes until the restaurant started having financial problems. So here, right, it sounds like the restaurant is trying to make more money by using a cheaper type of fish. Right? And we're noting that action didn't occur until there were financial problems. Another example sentence, let's talk about making yes or no questions in the past perfect. To do this, I start with had, then I have my subject, and then the participle form. Here's the last past perfect example. Had she substituted at the school before becoming a teacher there? And that does happen to many people, where they might be interested in teaching in a particular school or district. First, they become a substitute, kind of check things out, get to know some people there before they're able to secure a more permanent type role. Now, let's move on and talk about making sentences in the simple future. Today, we're going to focus on be going to. There are a number of ways to talk about future events, future actions in the simple future. But today we're going to focus on using be going to, and that is most common as people talk or make plans. Right? So things they've been thinking about doing, kind of organizing their thoughts. Occasionally, you'll hear people use it when they mean they're making a prediction or a promise, but it's used again way more frequently to talk about plans. The important thing to remember here is when we're talking about the simple future and using be going to, we have to pay attention to our subject. If our subject is I, then our present form of be is am, and then we use going to, and then the base verb. If the subject is you, we, or they, we use are, A-R-E, going to, and then the base verb. And lastly, if the subject is he, she, or it, we use is going to and the base verb. Let's take a look at an affirmative example. We're going to substitute 9 for C in this equation. I've heard many math teachers say sentences like this, kind of describing the plan on solving a particular problem. So, what the teacher is likely saying here is every place we see the letter C, now we're going to put the 9 there and kind of rework or continue the problem. Now let's talk about making negative simple future sentences with be going to. The key here is, again, start with your subject, pay attention to that subject, and use the correct form of be, then not, then going to, and the base verb. Okay? An example of this might be, more laws and regulations on social media for teens are not going to substitute for parents' attention and engagement. Here really means take the place of, right? So there are many people who feel like we need more rules about what teens can or can't do, or what can be shared through various social media platforms. There are others say doesn't matter what the rules are, right? What we make. Parents have to monitor, be involved, be engaged, and supervise. Finally, let's look at making a yes or no question with be going to. To do this, you start with a form of be, whatever form matches your subject, that subject comes next. Then you use going to and the base verb. Here's my last example. Are you going to substitute avocado for the butter in that recipe? So here, again, we're talking about something taking the place of something else. Now let's move on and talk about a couple words that are related to our verb substitute. And the first word we're going to talk about is just the noun form of this word. So the noun of substitute, you'll notice, has the exact same spelling. It has the exact same pronunciation as well. The noun substitute can have a couple different meanings. We're going to talk about two of them today. So the first way people use substitute is to refer to a person or thing that is acting or serving in the place of another. An example of this might be, he has been drinking and using soy milk as a substitute for dairy milk. So in the place of dairy milk, using a different form of milk. Now, a very common way to hear the noun substitute used is related to sports. And it's, again, when one athlete or one player replaces another after the game has already started. So, usually in the middle of the game. So, what frequently happens though, when we use this noun in connection to sports, is we shorten the word just to sub, S-U-B. So, an example of this might be, she needs a sub, right? I know I've heard parents shout this, other coaches. Maybe they've noticed someone who's injured or for whatever reason extremely tired, right? And they're asking for a replacement for that particular athlete. We're going to talk about one more related word today, and that is the noun substitution. Substitution. This is the action of replacing someone or something with another person or thing. An example of this might be, FIFA's rules state that each team can make 5 substitutions in each game. So here, I'm talking about football, or as it's known in the United States, more commonly soccer. We're talking about the rules for the professionals, right? How many times can a team replace? And I believe the current rules are 5. 5 times this action can occur. We could also say each team gets 5 subs or 5 substitutes. It would have the same meaning. I'm just using a different form of the word, and there I'm really referring to the person or the player that is going to replace another. Thank you so much for watching today's video. I hope you have a great day.